Hi guys, Ricky Pope here, and today on the Christian Nerds Unite podcast, I'm joined by actor and comedian Mark Christopher Lawrence, and we talk clean comedy and family camp, plus scripture and nerdy news as always, and we'll get to all of that right after this. 2022 is flying by so fast, and I just reviewed my goals for the year. It's not too late to set some effective goals for 2022 for yourself. And the Goal Process 101 ebook helps you do just that. With a straightforward process and practical exercises, you'll be guided to set the right goals for you and set out a plan to achieve them. Get your copy of the Goal Process 101 ebook by going to goalprocess101.com. Use CNU2022 at checkout to save 10%. Now, back to the show. Today, I interview actor and comedian Mark Christopher Lawrence. You might know him better as Big Mike from the show Chuck, or his Dry Bar special, or recognize him from the new film Family Camp, produced by the Skit Guys. But before we get to that, let's do some scripture reading and some nerdy news. Let's start with scripture. Ecclesiastes 3, 1 through 8. There is a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens. A time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather them, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to search and a time to give up, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be silent and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. And now some nerdy news. The BBC has confirmed that David Tennant and Catherine Tate are returning to Doctor Who in 2023 for the 60th anniversary season. Russell T Davies was kind of vague about where or how this will all fit into the big ball of wibbly wobbly timey-wimey stuff. I can't wait to see the 10th Doctor and Donna return to the small screen. If you're old like me, then you might recall one of the first mockumentaries ever. This is Spinal Tap, a fake documentary about England's loudest band, Spinal Tap, starring the likes of Michael McKean and Rob Reiner, of all people. Well, get ready to turn your guitar amp up to 11 because there is going to be a sequel. Currently being called Spinal Tap 2 by many, the film is expected to be released in 2024, just in time for the film's 40th anniversary. The new family-friendly Christian film, Family Camp, produced by the Skit Guys, had a great opening weekend for a small independent film, with almost $1.4 million, even though only opening in 854 theaters nationwide, and an 86% rating on Rotten Tomatoes by audience members, coming in second place for new releases this weekend and ninth overall, up against blockbusters that are still in more than 3,000 theaters. Great job, guys. Can't wait to see what you do next. Speaking of the new film Family Camp, I hope you take time to go see it if it's playing in a theater near you. And our guest this week plays Pastor Dave in the film. Now let's get right to the interview with Mark Christopher Lawrence. Mark Christopher Lawrence, it is so great to have you on the Christian Nerds Unite podcast.
My pleasure for being here. Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to get to know you just a little bit today. Can you give me for those of us for those in our audience that might not be real familiar with you, can you kind of give us a little bit about who Mark is and how they might recognize you?
That's a question I get all the time in daily life. People go, "What do I know you from?" And and I always tell them, "I don't know what you watch, but I've been around for about 36 years." My first TV job was Hill Street Blues. I did a guest star on there, and then my first film was a year later, um, Caddyshack 2, and then my first blockbuster was Terminator 2, and things snowballed from there.
Awesome. Well, and probably if people recognize your face right now, most of them are probably going to say they know you from something like the TV series Chuck, because you played, is it Big Mike?
Big Mike.
So what was it like working on a long-term television series like that? Because you're in, are you in every episode or most episodes of
Most
Chuck?
of them. I think I did every episode the first season, and I wasn't a series regular then. I was they were basically hiring me every week as a guest star, and then they made a deal to make me a series regular for second season on, and so I think I did most episodes, maybe 80 or 90. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I was looking at IMDb and it said like 87, and I wasn't sure how
Yeah,
many episodes Chuck had, but I was thinking it can't have had many more than that. So
yeah. I think
once
they
you,
I think they were shooting to get 100, which didn't make sense since they didn't go to syndication. They went to Netflix and
yeah,
devalued them, while we were on the air. So it just didn't make sense.
interesting stuff that that studios decide to do.
Yeah.
But you've been doing a lot of other new things lately, and the thing that's coming out really quickly is going to be Family Camp, and that's supposed to be hitting theaters May 13th. So
Yes.
just a couple of weeks from this recording, and it may have actually happened by the time I release this this interview. I'm not sure. But tell us a little bit about Family Camp. What is that about? What did you do on Family Camp?
Family Camp is exactly that. It's a piece about a family camp. I play a pastor of a church, and family camp is the highlight of the year for me and my family. I'm Pastor Dave. Um, the skit guys are the centerpiece for this movie, and I mean, anybody that knows the skit guys, know that they are hilarious, and they don't miss a beat in this movie. Go and see it. You will definitely be entertained.
I'm excited to see it. I've actually worked with the director before, but Tommy and Eddie are hilarious guys. They
Oh yeah.
definitely know how to deliver a line, and watching the trailers, some of the physical comedy is definitely coming through. Um, Now you are this is a faith-based uh, film,
Yes.
and you're going to be doing some other faith-based projects coming up. Can you
Yes. I,
tell
I
us a
just
little bit
finished.
about those?
Yeah, I just finished Lying Together, which is a Christmas movie,
Hmm.
and again I play a pastor. It must be the beard. I think I get more of this gray in the beard. I'll end up being a Santa Claus, but right now I'm a pastor. Um, so my daughter is coming home to go to her best friend's wedding, and she tells a lie to her father because her father always tries to fix her up with somebody, because he
Hmm.
wants her to have a reputable young man in her life. And she just didn't want it this time. So she and her best friend say that they're together. and they come home for the wedding, and they actually get together, and it's a fun thing. And then there's a twist.
Oh, nice. Awesome. And you're working with PureFlix on some new things. Are you able to talk about any of that yet?
PureFlix, our director Nathan Blair, he directed me in a film called Sleeper Agent, which is really funny. And during the quarantine period, he and his family did this series of vignettes of sort of post-rapture activity. It's like, what happens when you wake up and you've been left behind. And so just his daughter was like director on it, and a DP or something, and it was I guess an idea that he had in his head, and they shot all these little vignettes, and somehow PureFlix saw it and wanted to do something, and so it's turned into a 6-episode series.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You're getting around all over the place, but now you tell me that your day job is comedy.
Yeah, I've always said, once I started acting, I always looked at comedy as a way to help me pay my bills when I wasn't acting. Because I tend to flow from film and TV to stage and voiceover, and stand up, has always been there, because I started doing that in the 11th grade.
Wow.
And so I look at it as my day job. I went and did a show last night, and had a lot of fun, and I can pay some bills today.
So what was it like doing stand up in 11th grade?
Fun, exciting. I remember my first time at the Comedy Store. I came off stage, and Louis Anderson said to me, "Hey, you got something there, kid. Keep writing." And Robin Harris. I remember I was supposed to be on at they have a thing called potluck, so you go and sign up for open mic basically. And Robin Williams came in, 2 people ahead of me, and just did a ton of time. I was supposed to be on at 10. I didn't get on until midnight. It was only comics left in the room by the time I got on, but I still had a great time. And here I am 40 years later, still doing it.
That's awesome. And talk to me a little bit now. You're a believer.
Yes.
Talk to me a little bit about faith and being in comedy and working in the film industry and the TV industry. What's that been like for you?
Well, I think it's faith is not who I am. It's who I seek. And the person that I'm trying to be is who I seek. I'm trying. I know that I can't be Christ, but I'm trying to be Christ-like. And Christianity is a journey for everyone, and everybody's journey is different. I had a period where I stopped going to church because I felt like I didn't have to go. It's like once I moved out of my mom's house, I was like, well, I'm grown. I don't have to go to church if I don't want to. And then years later, I felt like something was missing from my life, and it was faith. And when I look back on my life, I look at all the situations, all the driving as an opener to every gig, renting a car and putting 8,000 miles on it, and driving down the freeway at 3 a.m. or the highway and trying to figure out, did I actually see those last 3 exits, or did I sleep through them? and just lucky to be alive. And I think about it, it's like God just kept me through all that. And at this point in my life, at 50, almost 58 years old, I got to believe something, and naturally my roots are in Christianity, and I believe it, and I'm not trying to be left behind. and as an actor, I just go to work and do what I do. I worked on Touch by an Angel, and Della Reese and I had a conversation about Harlem Nights, because I had just watched it for like the 20th time. It's so funny. She was so funny in it. And I said to her, I just watched Harlem Nights last night. I said, you were so funny. She says, oh, they had me cussing like a sailor. And she was a minister. And I said, does that Did you get like any pushback from that? Because she had a church. And
Mhm.
she says, honey, you're asking me that because you want to know if you should turn down jobs. And I said,
Mhm.
partly, yes. And she said, look, God won't open doors for you that he doesn't want you to go through. He
Hmm.
said, you never know why you get a job. You might need to go somewhere and be on a set somewhere so that somebody can see you and see his love and light and grace shining through you so that he can reach that person. So take your job, and anybody that doesn't understand that the character that you're portraying that's cussing like a sailor is not you, that's their problem, not yours.
Hmm.
And it just made so much sense to me. And over the years, I think I've only turned down 2 jobs, and they both dealt with they were both commercials, and they dealt with cigarettes. They wanted me to sell cigarettes, and as a rapper, because of a movie Fear of a Black Hat, I played a rapper in.
Hmm.
And at the time, my thinking was, they are selling cigarettes to kids. I mean, who else? Grown folks aren't listening to rap back then. You know what I mean? And so I turned those jobs down. Um, but I just go to work and do my work, and like if I'm in a play, if a play has language in it, it's not like I'm going to be able to change that language. So, and because of my theater background, I try to make the written words work the way the writer wrote them.
Hmm.
Before I try to abandon them. And Della's take on it made a lot of sense to me.
Awesome. Well, how has it been transitioning from you've done a lot of more secular shows.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're starting to see kind of a bit of a blossoming of Christian, Christian series and Christian films being made. Um, how has that transition been for you in career wise, and just from what you've seen in the industry? What's that been like?
Slow. It's I went on the 700 Clubs several years ago, many years ago, and the makeup artist was friends with David A.R. White. She had worked with him, and one day on Twitter, she said to me, she says, "Hey, do you know David A.R. White?" I said, "No." She goes, "You should know him because I post everything." My daily verse that I read every day, I post on social media. I used to only post it on Twitter, and then when the pandemic happened, I had no gigs to post. I started posting it everywhere, and then I kept doing it because people every day are in my inbox saying, "Thank you for posting that. I really need to hear that today." And so she made an introduction to David for me, and then shortly after that, he contacted me to find out who my agents were, and offered me a job. And that was like my second faith-based project. I did one years and years and years ago. I don't even remember the name of it. Played a fireman, but and then after that, it just became relationships with people. Leland Clausen wanted me to do Sleeper Agent with him, and from that, I'm doing Fragment because of Sleeper Agent. So things are just sort of opening up, one thing leading to another. So I'm still doing both sides, but I think the big change is that faith-based material is getting much better.
How do you mean?
I think before, recently and before, I think the technology is making it better because you don't have the film processing costs that
Mhm.
used to be involved with making a film.
Yeah.
And because of that, filmmakers are able to do better quality work in their budget.
Mm.
And I think that's the difference now. And you have the bigger companies that are now seeing the market in a way that they didn't look at it before. That
Mm.
you can have a film that's going to do well in the box office because it's made well and it's funny, like Family Camp, for example.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the transition, I think.
Interesting. And I Family Camp, I think, is definitely one where the production quality definitely is coming through.
Yeah.
Watching the trailer, it doesn't. Sometimes you watch, something that may be a smaller budget, and you think that feels like it's made for TV, or it feels like it was shot weirdly.
Right.
Family Camp, when you watch the trailer, it feels like what you're expecting for a comedy in a theater. And I think it looks really, really great. I'm super excited to see it, and I'm so glad to know that there are people creating great art like that. And I love meeting people who are in the industry who are believers and are active, because I think we can, as believers, we can make some great art. And I think, but sometimes we may make great art and it may be more secular, but like you said earlier, it gives us the opportunity to share why we believe with those who may never have heard before.
Mm-hmm. I think one thing that and this is just my opinion. I think some people hear the phrase faith based and get turned off because in the old days the production quality wasn't there, the acting quality wasn't there,
right?
And then it was heavy handed trying to save your soul. And I think faith based doesn't necessarily have to mean I'm beating you over the head with the Bible. If you look at shows like Andy Griffith, for example,
right,
very funny, and there was always some moral to it, some family values to it, and you can have that sort of thing, where families can watch something together and enjoy it, without vulgarity and all that, and I think once people see a film like Family Camp, they'll understand that the game has changed.
I definitely think it has, and I'm super excited for it. I have always I've done a little filmmaking. I have a couple of short films that I've worked on, and that I've directed, and I always felt like there is a place and a market for good, wholesome entertainment made by believers, aimed at believers, but that maybe isn't like you said. We're not hitting you over the head with a Bible here.
Right.
We're trying to create something good and entertaining, though in a faith friendly way.
Yes, and I think that's the thing that sort of the major studios now are realizing, that we don't have to beat people over the head with the Bible, but we can still do our job and make a great product without having to feel like we got to save every soul that hits the seats.
Yeah.
That's God's job. He's going to do what he does.
Yes, exactly. So, Mark, tell me how you got involved with the Dry Bar Comedy Special.
So I have a friend who books small venues. She's a fellow comedian, and I've worked for her many times. Frances DiLorenzo, very funny lady. She was like one of the first comics that went viral on YouTube, with a bit that she does. And she texted me one day and said, "Hey, have you ever done a Dry Bar special?" And I said, "No." I said, "I don't even know what that is." And so she says, "Oh, you'd be great on there." She says, "Let me see if I can make an introduction." So she makes an introduction, and it just happened to be that year, their end of their season, they had 2 slots available, and I was available for one of them.
Oh, wow.
And they put me in, and flew me out, put me up. One of the producers was a fan of Chuck, and we had 2 sold out shows. So you do 2 shows, and they edit it from your 2 sets, and and it was a lot of fun. It was shot in Provo, Utah, and they send you like a thing that says, this Provo clean is not like club clean or whatever. And I was like, well, I'm just gonna do what I do. Either it's gonna be funny or it's not. And had 2 great sets, and it took about 3 months, and then all of a sudden one morning I started getting text messages. Hey, you have a clip on Facebook that's going viral. You have a clip on. I was like, really? And it's like 6 a.m. Somebody on the East Coast saw it. So I look, and sure enough, one of my clips had like 1 million views already, and it's like 6 a.m.
Wow.
And that clip today has 19.1 million views.
Wow.
On Facebook alone, not even on everything else where they put it. But really family friendly, and the Dry Bar thing is VidAngel, I think, are the producers of it,
right?
And a lot of funny comics on there, and I think everybody that I've recommended from San Diego got in. And so now I'm kind of working on a new hour so I can go back. And I think they're doing shorter sets now. Back then they were doing 40 minutes, and now I think they're doing 20 minutes or something. So I'm working on a new set so I can get back over there and do another one.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to hearing it. We did have another Dry Bar comic back last summer. We had a Dry Bar comic on the show, and it was great chatting with his name's Byron Trimble out of Michigan.
Yeah, he's fun.
Oh, you know Byron?
Yeah.
Byron's a great guy.
I don't know him personally, but I've seen his stuff. He's really funny.
Oh yeah, he's funny. He used to live in Oklahoma where I live, and he tells some interesting stories about being from Michigan and living in Oklahoma and not feeling comfortable about it. Your Dry Bar special, I watched it very recently, and you tell an interesting story about how your comedy killed someone.
True story. It was a charity event here in San Diego, and it's funny because it before I did the special, it had just happened. It was a brand new bit, and I just put it out that night. I think I'd only done it maybe 6 times on stage. So now the bit itself is a much better bit than it is on Dry Bar, even though the Dry Bar bit is funny. But yeah, I was doing this charity event, and they've got all these people in the side yard of this mansion, which made me think, how much money you got? You could get a whole show in your side yard. I can't even get my trash cans in the side yard. And 13 minutes into my act, this guy, I guess, collapses, and the lady sitting next to him said, "Oh, he was laughing so hard," and then he just slumped over. And I was so glad other comics were there to see it. So that when I tell the story, I got some people that can vouch for it. And so the bit itself has really grown to be a much better bit than you saw. I'll have to tape it sometime and post it, in its form today. But true story, killed a guy with jokes. I guess we should tell people that there were 4 doctors in the house, and they were able to resuscitate the guy. But
I was going to let them go watch and find out. Awesome. Well, if you haven't watched Mark's Dry Bar special, you definitely need to go find it. It's hilarious. It's definitely well worth watching. Well, Mark, is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience today?
Probably just a word of encouragement. We're going through a crazy, crazy time in the world right now. And, with COVID and wars and rumors of wars. And if there are people that you haven't talked to in a while, reach out to somebody and say hello, love on each other, stay happy and healthy and safe.
Great word. I really appreciate it. Mark, it's been so great having you on the show. One last question. If people want to follow you, where can they find you?
Go to my website, markchristopherlawrence.com. Scroll down to the bottom. All of my social media buttons are there.
Awesome. Definitely go follow Mark. It's well worth a follow there.
And I do
appreciate
talk to people. You know,
you do.
when people inbox me on Instagram, chances are I will say hello and maybe answer a question or two.
Awesome. Well, it's been great having you on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Rick. Appreciate you.
It was great getting to know Mark Christopher Lawrence, and I do hope you will go check out Family Camp. I'll also put some links down in the show notes for you. Check those out as well. Well, that's all I have for you today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, click all those links, whatever they are down there. That way you can keep up with us. And every time we put out new content, you'll know about it. And you can find all of our social links, our links to our YouTube channel, and to our online store at ChristianNerdsUnite.com. And while you're there, click on the support tab. We would love to have you as a Patreon. Before you go, I do want to leave you with this blessing from Philippians 1. And this is my prayer, that your love may abound more and more in knowledge and depth of insight, so that you may be able to discern what is best and may be pure and blameless for the day of Christ, filled with the fruit of righteousness that comes through Jesus Christ, to the glory and praise of God. We'll see you next week. Blessings.